In the 15th century, the shadow of the Ottoman Empire stretched long and dark over the Balkans, a tide of conquest, fueled by the fierce discipline of the Janissaries and the thunder of cannons, seemed unstoppable. Nations fell, kingdoms were erased from the map, and hope was a currency few could afford. But shadows, no matter how deep, can be pierced by a single defiant light. This is not just a story of war, it is a story of identity lost and rediscovered, of a man raised by the wolf who had to remember he was born an eagle. This is the story of how one man, the son of a prince, turned against the most powerful empire on earth and forged a legend that would echo for centuries. His name was Gjergj Kastrioti, but the world would come to know him by the name his Ottoman masters gave him: Skanderbeg. Lord Alexander. Skanderbeg. Our story begins not with a hero, but with a father's impossible choice. In the rugged highlands of Albania, a land of fierce and independent clans, a nobleman named Gjergj Kastrioti watched the Ottoman war machine advance. He fought, he rallied his people, but the outcome was inevitable. To save his family, his people, and perhaps secure a sliver of future favor, he made a gut-wrenching concession. He offered his sons as tribute to the Sultan. This was the devshirme, the blood tax. The Ottomans would take the brightest, strongest Christian boys from their conquered lands. They would be converted to Islam, educated in Istanbul, and molded into the empire's most loyal soldiers, the Janissaries. It was a brilliant, terrifying system designed to strip a child of his past and rebuild him entirely in the image of the Ottoman future. And so, young Gjergj, perhaps only 8 or 9 years old, was taken from his homeland. He left behind the stone towers of Krujë, the sight of the double-headed eagle on his father's banner, and the language of his people. He was taken to the heart of the empire that had conquered him. In the Ottoman court, the boy known as Gjergj ceased to exist. He was given a new name, a new faith, and a new purpose. He became Skanderbeg, and he was brilliant. He excelled in every way his captors, now his masters, could have hoped. He mastered military strategy, horsemanship, and the art of war. He learned Turkish, Arabic, and the complex politics of the court. He fought with such ferocious skill and loyalty for the Sultan that he quickly rose through the ranks. The boy from the mountains was becoming a prince of the empire. He was granted the title of Bey and given command of a cavalry force of 5,000 men. He fought in Ottoman campaigns across Europe and Anatolia, winning victory after victory for the very power that had swallowed his homeland. To his Ottoman superiors, he was the perfect success story, the ultimate testament to the power of the devshirme system, a living weapon forged in their image. But deep within the heart of this model general, a ghost lingered, a memory of mountain air, of a different flag, of a father's resigned face. The identity they worked so hard to erase was not gone. It was dormant, a seed buried under years of conditioning, waiting for a single drop of rain to bring it back to life. That rain came in the autumn of 1443 on a muddy field near the city of Niš in modern-day Serbia. A massive Ottoman army, led by Sultan Murad II himself, was in a fierce battle against the Hungarian forces led by the legendary commander John Hunyadi. The battle was not going well for the Ottomans. Chaos reigned. In the confusion of the retreat, a plan, long simmering in the deepest recesses of Skanderbeg's mind, snapped into focus. This was his moment. While the Ottoman army was in disarray, Skanderbeg did the unthinkable. With 300 of his most loyal Albanian cavalrymen, men who, like him, remembered the land of their birth, he turned his back on the Ottoman banner. He didn't just desert, he launched a lightning strike. His target was not the Hungarians, but a nearby Ottoman garrison. His objective was not mere escape, but a symbol. He rode for days, pushing his men and horses to the limit, heading southwest. He was going home. He arrived at the fortress of Krujë, the very castle of his birth, now held by an Ottoman garrison. Using a forged letter bearing the Sultan's own seal, a seal he had likely been entrusted with, he bluffed his way inside. And once the gates were open, the trap was sprung. the Albanian rebels overwhelmed the stunned garrison. The double-headed eagle flag of the Kastriotis, hidden for decades, was raised once more over the stone walls of Krujë. The Ottoman general was gone. In his place stood Gjergj Kastrioti. The eagle had returned to its nest, and it was ready for war. But raising a flag is one thing. Keeping it flying is another. He had declared war on an empire with a single castle, a few hundred men, and a name he had just reclaimed. The Ottomans would come for him. They would come with everything they had. The rebellion had begun, but could it survive? He was the empire's finest general, a masterpiece of their own creation. But in the autumn of 1443, he turned his sword against his masters. Gjergj Kastrioti had reclaimed his name, his fortress, and his destiny. The double-headed eagle flew once more over Krujë. But a single fortress does not make a nation, and a single victory does not win a war. The Ottomans, the most powerful military force on earth, would not let this rebellion stand. The question was no longer if they would come, but when. And Skanderbeg knew the storm was coming. He had lit a flame in the darkness. Now, he had to ensure it would not be extinguished. His first, and perhaps greatest battle was not against the Ottomans, but against the deep-seated divisions of his own people. For centuries, the Albanian clans were known for their fierce independence, often fighting each other as much as any outside invader. To survive, they needed unity. With the charisma of a born leader and the desperate urgency of a man with nothing to lose, Skanderbeg did the impossible. He traveled across the land, from the mountains in the north to the coasts in the south. And he negotiated, pleaded, and inspired. In the town of Lezhë, in March of 1444, he achieved a miracle. He brought together the most powerful Albanian princes, often rivals, often at odds, and formed a military alliance, the League of Lezhë. For the first time in history, the Albanian people were not a collection of squabbling fiefdoms. They were a unified front, and they had a single commander, Skanderbeg. But a treaty on paper is one thing. He had to transform this alliance into an army, and he had to do it with the tools he knew best, the land itself and the tactics he had learned from the Ottomans. The storm arrived in 1450. Sultan Murad II, the very Sultan Skanderbeg had once served, marched himself at the head of a colossal army over 100,000 strong to crush this insolent rebellion and reclaim his lost general. Their target was the heart of the resistance, Krujë. The odds were impossible. Skanderbeg had perhaps 15,000 to 18,000 men. A conventional battle would be suicide, so he would not fight conventionally. This is where Skanderbeg's genius erupted. He knew these mountains like no Ottoman ever could. He split his forces into agile, mobile units. They would ambush the Ottoman supply lines, strike their flanks in narrow gorges, and vanish back into the forests before the heavy Ottoman cavalry could respond. He was like a ghost, harassing a giant, bleeding it slowly, day by day. Meanwhile, inside Krujë, a garrison of only 1,500 men, led by the steadfast Vrana Khanty, prepared for hell. The Ottomans laid siege, bombarding the walls with their massive cannons. Assault after assault was launched on the gates, but the fortress, perched high on the mountain, held. Supplies ran low, hope wavered, but they held. They held because they knew Skanderbeg was out there, that he had not abandoned them. For months, the siege dragged on. The Ottoman army, demoralized by constant harassment, disease, and the approaching winter, was being broken not by a single great battle, but by 1,000 small cuts. Finally, humiliated and exhausted, Sultan Murad II was forced to give the order to retreat. The mighty Ottoman army turned and stumbled back east. Krujë had held. Albania was free. This was not the end, but the beginning of a legend. For the next 25 years, Skanderbeg would defy 3 sultans, Murad II, and then his even more formidable son, Mehmed the Conqueror, who had taken Constantinople itself. He fought them to a standstill. Battle after battle, siege after siege. His name became a symbol of resistance across a Christian Europe that lived in fear of the Ottoman advance. The Pope hailed him as the champion of Christ. To his people, He was simply their protector, their athleta Christi, the athlete of Christ. He proved that will, when forged with cunning and a deep love for one's homeland, could defy the impossible. He was the shield of Europe, the unbreakable warrior of the mountains. Every man's time must end. Skanderbeg died of a fever in 1468, not on a battlefield, but in his bed, an old warrior finally at rest. Without its leader, the League of Lezhë eventually fractured. Albania would, for a time, fall back under Ottoman control. But they could never erase his legacy. The memory of those 25 years of freedom became the eternal fuel for the Albanian spirit. His rebellion was a testament to a simple, profound truth that the strongest fortress is not made of stone, but of the human will to be free. His story is not just Albanian history, it is human history. A reminder that a single flame of defiance, once lit, can never truly be extinguished. It waits in the embers, ready to flare to life once more, as long as someone is there to remember the story. Thank you for watching. If you found this story of defiance and resilience compelling, feel free to explore more mysteries of the past with us here on The Past Unfolded. Until next time,